Whenever I first entered the district, my game plan is to try to better understand where the district sits. Some people have referenced it as a 10-year plan. There is no 10-year plan. It's called a long-term facility plan. Whether that time frame is 10 years, 30 years, 50 years, there isn't a 10-year plan. It's a long-term facility plan. So back in 2008, and I think that's where the 10 years came from, because it was originated in 2008, we're sitting in 2018, there might be that assumption that, oh, it's just time to call for a bond. And that's not how the process works. Essentially how it works is we start looking at, in 2008, they outlined all of these needs. And I'm actually going to...
They being an outside committee.
They being...
Weren't you on the committee with me?
Yeah, they being a group of community members, teachers, the whole nine. It was a large number of people representing the entire community, education, the whole nine. And looking at it, let me get a little closer here. And looking at it, this was the total list. And as you can see, it might be difficult to read, so I'll try to read it out to us. This has been our checklist, per se, throughout the years, and I can actually track sort of the process and where we're going from and to. And so as you can see, this is the high school and junior high school cafeteria. We've got the food court. Check. That's been completed. We look here, junior high school addition. This is one that was down the road, but you notice they're just identifying needs as they identify them. They're not in any particular order or anything like that. Multi-purpose building, check. That's been completed. This renovation was actually done, they thought back in 2008 it would probably be a bond election, but it actually ended up being out of fund balance. So this is one of the renovations. So we have the track, tennis courts, multi-purpose building. All of those projects actually got done out of fund balance and didn't even touch taxpayer increases or anything like that. And moving on, new ag building, check, that's been completed. And so I took this list, it was reviewed in 2010. So track, tennis courts, complete, check, check. This is all work. As I go down further, you notice down here, in 2017-18, this past school year in April, beginning of April this past year, I brought this before the board and said, me being new to the district, let's really take a look at our current needs, because over a decade, needs will change. This was done a decade ago. It was reviewed in 2010, now it's being reviewed again 17-18. And how did that change? Essentially, due to our atmosphere that we live in, safety and security, all the things in pink identify a current immediate need if we were to call a bond election, right? So safety and security was highlighted. We're looking at this going, a fine arts facility would be $8.5 million. And whenever we talked to our financial advisors, that wasn't even an option right now. That's not even an option. Even if we were to max out our tax rate, we couldn't get to 8.5. So that project is out. I mean, we can't achieve it. So we go to the next thing on our list. The next big thing you'll notice here, junior high school addition. In my conversations, the vision was that the old junior high gym would be torn down at some point. They would build onto the front of the junior high to get out to 6th Street. There'd be some parking. In fact, I can show you on this other one. So you can see here, this is where the current old junior high gym resides, the dotted line. What they envisioned was growing this way with a junior high addition. This would include the science labs, some administrative offices, and then additional parking. But yet again, to demolish this building, and to do this, and to get the science labs achieved, we didn't have the capacity to do so. So we have to be creative with how we meet the needs of the district based on bond capacity. That's really what drives the decision making, right? So your options are wait until we can meet it with bond capacity, or we modify the plan and try to get needs met. Keep in mind, since 2005, we gained 75 students. That's 1/12 of our district, right? So to meet those needs, they need a place to go, they need adequate facilities to meet their needs educationally, and so on. After we go back here, so we looked at this, whenever we couldn't do an $8.5 million fine arts center, it was what in there is really our need. And stage. The stage was the need. I mean, I don't know if y'all have been to graduation, we're putting wooden platforms up on cinder blocks every minute. Dressing it up, making it look pretty, which is great, but the issue is the need there for more than that? Are we going to spend the manpower over 3 days to erect this stage for graduation, every award ceremony? I mean, eventually the cost in payroll is going to pay for something else, right? And it's sort of the mindset. What in here was such a priority for right now? And the stage was the piece, so we peeled that out. Junior high gymnasium. This, of course, is impacted weekly, right? During volleyball, during basketball. I don't know if you've been able to visit that gym while an event's going on. We have the home and visitors all sharing one side of the bleachers. We've had the clearing of some benches and stuff like that. I mean, we just don't have the adequate room. Fire marshal's there saying, you have too many people in here. We would ask people to leave. I mean, is that what the game plan is? And that's why the junior high gym became a big priority in how we move forward, because it does impact students on a weekly basis. The next up, science classroom / lab. That was actually the major need for right now for junior high. So finding a way, because the new junior high gym would sit next door to the junior high, there is a way to build onto it to make it easily accessible to junior high kids, make it to where you can't access the junior high labs through the gym, make it to where it's exterior access only. There's ways to accomplish what the needs are without building two completely separate facilities. So this is the long-term facility plan. And this is what guides the direction. I do anticipate over the years, more stuff will add on to or move around. But as you can see from 08, let me zoom back in real quick. As you can see, a junior high gym back in 08, they were talking $3.6 million just for the gym. So if we did a 6% inflation, like the going rate is, times 10 years, and add it on there, it gets us right pretty close to 4.6. And that's what is being ballpark figured for this bond election. Understanding that number can vary depending on details. Once you know, assuming 1, bond passes, 2, then we have to start working in detail.
In the bond that built the high school, was there money set aside to demolish? Like, were we supposed to have demolished?
As you can see, this long range plan, how many buildings does it account to demolish?
Okay.
0.
Oh, okay.
0.
Okay.
And so that being said, we strategically have to find a way to, and that's why old buildings stay standing, right? Every district, that's not Stockdale,
Right.
It's every district on different scales. Floresville has the same problem, I'm sure. Lavernia probably has the same problem, a fast growth district. Do we want our kids in a new facility getting their needs met, or do we want to knock something down and get back to the ground?
But nobody's in there, right?
Do what?
No one's using those old buildings.
Whenever I started, people were using the old facilities, that old high school. But part of the last bond election was that it wasn't adequate for student use, which is why my task week 1 as the new superintendent was to empty that building, with the exception of adults that use it part-time, on a part-time basis as like an office space.
Yeah.
But all students are out with the exception of the auditorium, which gets used maybe 6 to 10 times a year.
This stage thing, is that a separate structure itself, or is that part of the
It'd be
gym?
within the gym facility.
Within the new gym.
So I don't know if you've been to Navarro or Marion. I know Navarro has the gym, or the stage at the end. I know there's a school in Odessa that I was a principal at that has it. Marion, the stage was on the side. But the game plan would be is like 1-act play right now. They have nowhere to go. They're going to use the auditorium because that's all we have. But Does it meet the needs of it? I don't know. I think there's a happy medium, right? For graduation, all these other different events that a stage could be utilized, and I think is needed outside of, you know, how easy is it to establish a coach, not use the gym floor for 3 days while we erect the stage, and then we're going to take a day and a half to tear it down, store it all away. It just happens year after year after year.
How big would the junior high gym be under the current proposal compared to the high school gym?
To be honest with you, I think that it would be a very similar footprint. Just keep in mind, in the back of the current one, we have a weight room. That would be the space that would be used for a stage, right? And then the seating, I mean, you've seen on pep rally days that we still fill both sides of that gym now. But for general use, week in, week out, I think it's appropriate. Minus the special events, graduation, pep rallies, and so on. So the footprint, square footage would be very similar, looking at 15 to 20,000 square foot facility. But that would encompass stage, gym, everything. And then up to 2,000 to 3,000 square foot of labs. You know, the science component of that. So that's sort of ballpark figures, of course. They would shift accordingly. But that's the tricky part. No planning for demolitions. No, it's important to know that because you can't build on something that's already there. And that being said, we've got to be somewhat creative. A good conversation to have too is asbestos abatement. Whenever we talk about renovation or new construction, asbestos abatement, that's where you're removing all the asbestos from the building. That has to be done whether you renovate or whether you construct new. The maintenance building that we talked about where the new gym would go, the asbestos abatement alone is $20,000. The actual demolition plus asbestos is about $130, came to a total of $150. The old high school facility itself, back 10 years ago, I found an asbestos abatement report, and it quoted it at $163,000 just to get the asbestos out. That's not to renovate it, build new, demolition it, nothing. So nearing, probably at this point, $200,000 plus, just to get the asbestos out. The old gym, haven't even had it assessed. That's sort of the next thing, right, as we move forward. But that being discussed, I mean, those are all the different facets to consider. I do know that the junior high facility right now, this last summer, not the most recent one, but the prior one, we did have a brand new sewer line put in. It was old clay type sewers, and if you look at facilities that are 30 years plus old, they're probably going to have something similar. We've even seen water pipes that we're going back and replacing outside the old junior high gym now that we did. We have a leak spring occasionally and we get it corrected, but it's literally really thick gauge steel, iron. And we're having to go back and we're replacing with PVC as the opportunity presents itself. So that just gives you an idea under the ground sort of what we battle with older facilities that are 30 plus years. Are there any other questions?